Okay, let's finish chapter 7. Page 103. A rolling laugh brought my eyes up. This officer was no lobsterback. Indeed, his coat was as blue as Washington's, though he wore a red and silver sash, and his cockade was edged with gold. I figured he might be one of the German soldiers hired to fight for the British, one of the Hessians so hated by the Patriots. To me, his round face looked like that of one of the German farmers I'd seen selling vegetables at the High Street Market in Philadelphia. "Ja is dusty for all the fog is damp," he said. He raised the mug and drank thirstily. Mr. Welsh asked most politely who was commanding the column. The officer answered, "Knupphausen." This outlandish name tickled my fancy, and despite my state of terror, or perhaps because of it, nervous laughter bubbled up inside me. "What is so funny, young man?" The officer asked sternly. "Oh, sir, I gasped. "The lad is but a simpleton, a witling, sir," said Mr. Welsh, hastily pointing significantly to his head. "I fear this war has addled his wits even further. I pray you let him depart in peace. His is that old brig yonder." The Hessian officer looked at my team and wagon, then peered at me. I let my jaw hang slack and goggled at him blankly. "We don't make war on idiotin', and we don't need those broken-down creatures. Someone has left us better horseflesh. Friends of yours?" he challenged Mr. Welsh. The tavern keeper's laugh rang out. "Mine, sir? And me loyal to the core, as is this poor boy's father? Run on along home now, Geordie. Now, Geordie." Once again that huge hand landed on my back, this time propelling me smartly in the direction of my rig. I leaped into the seat and drove away, for the first time grateful that Daisy and Buttercup were slow as molasses. Had they looked flutter-footed, the British likely would have confiscated them along with the horses of the luckless Continental Patrol. Since the British columns blocked the road going west, I was forced to turn east toward Chad's Ford. Soon I came in sight of Kennett Meeting House. I could see that the friends were assembled for midweek meeting, and I stopped to warn them that the British were not far behind me. What a waste of precious time. They thanked me for the warning, but went calmly on with their meeting as if I had never interrupted, even though shots were now ringing out behind me on the road. I hunkered down in the seat and looked desperately about for a place to turn off the main road. To my great relief, I found a lane that headed north. It was barely more than wheel ruts in the dirt, but at least 'twas clear of trees and soldiers. Seemingly oblivious to my fears, Daisy and Buttercup ambled along at their regular snail's pace, despite my shaking the reins to urge them faster. Such effort only delayed me further, for one of the reins snapped. It took the better part of an hour to mend. Thus it was past noon before I reached Street Road and turned east toward Jones Fort, several miles upstream from Chad's Ford, where the Americans were waiting for the British attack. Crossing at Jones's Ford was not easy. I had to pick my way around felled logs in the stream, and an American patrol stopped me on the east side for questioning. When I said I'd seen troops at Welsh's, but none since, the captain nodded. Just what Major Spear reported. I don't know what that blind fool, Colonel Bland, saw going up to the fork, but it surely wasn't redcoats. "Now you best get along, boy," he said. Mystified, I got along. Then, toiling up a steep slope, I heard rolling, distant thunder. I looked at the sky. It was cloudless. Even the morning fog had burned away under the bright, hot sun. Again the rumbling rent the air, and this time I knew 'twas no thunderclap, but the firing of guns, louder than I'd ever heard. I stopped the wagon to listen closely, trying to decide where the ominous sound was coming from. Panic rose in my chest until I could scarcely catch my breath. Instinctively, I reached into my pocket and brought out my lucky piece. The small lead grenadier in the red-painted tunic stood on my palm, aiming down his long musket. Clutching the toy, I made a childish wish that it could tell me what to do. But a much larger and less silent figure decided my course of action. I heard a peculiar muttering in the woods nearby, a string of oaths. Without stopping to think, I raised my lead soldier to throw at the mutterer. Then I saw his face. It belonged to Squire Thomas Cheney, a swarthy, thick-set man who had been a friend of my father's before the war had set them at odds. As the squire thrashed his way through the bushes with his riding crop, he scowled and swore like a madman. When he spotted me, his mouth opened into a perfect O of astonishment. "Why, Geordie, what are you doing here?" he gasped. "Been delivering Perry at Welsh's." "Then your horses are fresh?" he inquired eagerly. "If you want to call them that. Slowest nags in creation." "At least they're not lame," he said with disgust. "I had to leave my infernal mount tied to a still and was nearly caught by the redcoats. Give me a hand up, lad. We must hurry." "What do you mean?" I asked, helping him up beside me. "Why, we must warn Washington about this flanking action." "Flanking action?" I echoed, still not understanding. "Aye, 10,000 British are crossing the two branches of the Brandywine north of the Fork, guided by the Tory Galloway. I saw them myself. They'll come down Birmingham Road behind the American line and fall upon the Continentals from the rear. And by the cannon fire coming from the south, I judge Howe has sent some troops to make Washington believe that that is where the main attack will come." "Aye, troops under Knapson are moving against Chad's." Cheney pounded his fist down on the seat. "I thought so! 'Tis the same trick Howe used to win at Long Island. I tried to warn General Sullivan of this, but he thought I was exaggerating. Well, at least the dang fool gave me a pass to Washington's headquarters. I'll need your wagon." My expression must have resembled one of the idiots the Hessian thought me to be, for the squire said more kindly, "If you're too feared to come, wait here for me, and I'll be back as soon as I can. Father will flail me if I help the Continentals, but—" Suddenly I thought of my brother Will. I couldn't let him be taken by surprise. "I'm going down with you," I blurted out. "That's a brave lad," the squire cried. He seized the reins and whipped up the horses until they ran as if wolves were nipping at their hooves. Okay, into chapter 7. Take a look at that map.